Welcome to Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Writers, a once a week show covering all things Buffalo Sabres and NHL hockey. We thank you for joining us today, and to make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, be sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube and catch the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com. You can find us on Twitter at SabersScoopTHW and everything else at The Hockey Writer. And make sure you head over to morningskate.io to sign up for our daily Morning Skate newsletter so you don't miss out on the latest and weirdest hockey news every day. I'm joined by my co host Brandon. It's just the two of us again for the second straight week in a row. He's got a cold, so he might not sound the best tonight. But we can kick it off here. We got some Sabres news. Barely anything now, a week out after free agency.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was just crazy our last episode. We couldn't even get to all of the Sabres signings because that's how busy it was. Well, now we can touch upon a few of the other aspects in the organization, starting off with former Buffalo Sabre Michael Peca being named assistant coach of the Sabres AHL affiliate, the Rochester Americans. And let's just dive right into this. So, I mean,
Sure.
this is an awesome ad for the organization. Pekka really loves being here too. He even said in his statement to understand what it means to be a Buffalo Sabre and to play in the city of Buffalo in front of those fans, it's a gift. It's a privilege. Pekka spent the 2021 season as a player development coach with the Washington Capitals, so it's not his first kick in the can. He does have some prior experience, and he worked primarily with players on the taxi squad. He's a two-time Selke Trophy winner and was captain of the Sabres when they made it to the Stanley Cup final in 1999. I'm sure Sabres fans don't like reliving that memory too much, but he was there, was a Selke winner. This guy has tons of experience. We know with the Rochester Americans, he's going to be primarily working with prospects. So, say a player like Artur Rutsalainen still needs time to the season up over there. He'll be working with Pekka. Maybe a guy like JJ Peterka comes and plays a few games there with the AMERKS. That's going to be very crucial. What do you think, Brandon, living in Buffalo? I'm sure you know everything about what Pekka means to the city.
Sure, yeah, and it means a lot to him too. I mean, like he still lives here. He had a house. I think actually I read recently sold his house just to move somewhere else, but he's still in the area. So he's lived here ever since he stopped playing for the Sabres and he's going to continue now living in Rochester and working in Rochester with the AMERKS. That's a great hire. I mean, this is somebody who loved playing for the Sabres. The fans loved him. And I think it's just a great add to the coaching staff. I mean, that's what you want. You want sort of that homegrown feeling with people who want to be here. That's Kevin Adams's whole ethos, right? We want people who want to be here, want to play in Buffalo. The same goes with your AHL affiliate. You need to be in sync there, and I think Pekka's a great hire.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you think down the line we'll eventually see him maybe on Don Granato's coaching staff, maybe another head coaching staff? Do you think he makes it onto the Buffalo Sabres coaching staff at some point in the future?
If not the Buffalo Sabres, and definitely an NHL coaching staff. I mean, I think he's on that trajectory, especially now with as an assistant coach in the AHL. It would be cool to see him under Granato. I mean, Granato just filled out his assistant coaching staff, so not this season, but definitely in the future. That's something I could see happening, especially if the Sabres do turn a new leaf in a few years, let's say, and start to get a little bit more competitive. Maybe they'll want Pekka in there, somebody who has developed their young guys, like you said, Paterka, Jack Quinn, the young players coming up, Ruotsalainen. You're going to need coaches who know what these players are like and people who can develop them correctly. And I think we could see that.
Definitely. I'm excited to see him go along here. It's just going to be nice. I think it's going to be a really good feel good story here.
Totally. Yeah. And actually, funny enough, there's some feel good stories coming from other areas of the Buffalo Sabres organization. It's crazy that we're saying that. I couldn't have imagined saying that
Oh, God, I know.
last week, a few weeks ago, a few months ago. It's been one heck of a season, but I mean, new additions to the Sabres have been showing more love for Buffalo too. I mean, free agent signing Vinny Hinostroza showed his praise for the fans. And of course, I'm getting logged out of the topic sheet here. This happens every single time. Oh boy, we're getting logged in. But Vinny Hinostroza, he signed a 1-year contract with the Sabres, and he had some good things to say too. He said that every time I played in Buffalo, it's been crazy. I'm super excited for the fans there. I've been to a Buffalo Bills game. Josh Allen is always my fantasy QB. He definitely won some brownie points with the Buffalo natives here. So super pumped, and I know how passionate the city is. Going from no fans to that, it's going to be something that's going to be really, really fun. With ads like Hinostroza and others, I mean, they re-signed Drake Caggiula to a cheap contract. They brought in some other players. How do we think that Kevin Adams has done in trying to sign and draft players who want to be here, who want to be in Buffalo?
I think it goes really when you're really starting to rebuild again, and that's what the Sabres are doing here, you got to establish a culture. That's what the Toronto Maple Leafs did in 2015. They brought in Lou Lamoriello, they brought in Mike Babcock, they established a culture here. Now, Kevin Adams has his guy in Don Granato. He's officially committed to him. He's going to be the guy there. He needs to build around the personality. Obviously, the core has changed completely. Ristolainen, Reinhardt are gone. Presumably, Eichel's going to be gone here very shortly. The core is now Rasmus Dahlin, Dylan Cousins, Jack Quinn, Owen Power now among that as well. So you got to build around those players, and it has to be different than it was the past decade. We can't be having any more Ryan O'Reilly stories come out
No.
where he was just so miserable being here. It should be an honor to be a Buffalo Sabre. And I know that's maybe so far fetched for Sabres fans to think right now, a team that looks poised to finish last place for the second season in a row, most likely. But at least they're doing it on purpose this time. They weren't doing it on purpose last year. And a guy like Vinny Hinostroza is interesting because this is a real value add. And I think this is Sam Ventura, the Sabres newest hire in the analytics department, working wonders here because he plays roughly a bottom six role. Maybe I don't know what he'll be on this team. He might get some licks in the top six. He's a really good play driver. His expected goals numbers have always been good. He's really decent defensively. His shooting percentage, man, it's always so bad. He's one of those players that really just can't finish. But if he has a decent, I could see it maybe in Buffalo playing with maybe someone more of the younger guys. He could, if that goes up anymore, he's gonna potentially have maybe a career season. I could see that being a nice ad for the Sabres just to get a guy, because that's what the Sabres really need this season. They need actual players playing on the team after
Exactly.
moving all these guys. Hinostroza is a real player. So he's played for the likes of the Chicago Blackhawks, the Arizona Coyotes, the Florida Panthers. He's just looking to find a home, and hopefully that home is in Buffalo.
Yeah, couldn't have put it better. I really like the signing. I think, like you said, I think he could have a very productive season, sort of under the radar. There's not a lot of pressure on a player like him, too, especially not on a team like the Sabres. It's almost like an opportunity to sort of show his stuff, prove, his what he's worth in the NHL. And if he does well, he could stick around when the Sabres start to do well. So I really like it.
Definitely. And going back to the point here, they're trying to sign and draft players like Owen Power, man. The fact that that guy's going to be, one of your top two D-men alongside Darlene, wanting to be here. You could see it, the emotion on his face the day he got drafted. His family loved it. It's just amazing. I've even been seeing it from the draft picks. Joshua Bloom, their fourth round pick in this past draft. His dad posted a photo on Twitter, and the Sabres even retweeted it of him in a Sabres jersey. These guys really want to be here, man. And it's just so awesome to see finally that players want to be in Buffalo.
Totally. I agree.
And, a guy that surprisingly wanted to be in Buffalo, Craig Anderson. We mentioned this last show. We're going to mention it again. We all thought this guy was retired. Like, we didn't think this guy was coming back to the show. He's over 40 years old. I thought he was done a long time ago, but he's still kicking it. Played an excellent in that one playoff game he suited up with
Yeah, that's right.
Washington. But he signed with the Sabres during free agency last week. And man, this guy's had some good things to say. He said that he was considering retirement after this past season ended, but his family was the one that convinced him that he should keep playing and had more to give. Anderson is looking to play a mentor role with his status as an NHL veteran, and said one thing he learned is never be satisfied. It took me a while to figure that out. Are you doing enough, or are you doing more than enough to make sure you're ready to go? What do you think of Craig Anderson here as a Sabre and bringing in that mentality to the team?
Yeah, I'm going to be quite honest with you. Last week when we talked about this, I was probably pretty harsh to judge the signing, but having some time to think about it now, and especially seeing what Anderson has sort of approached the situation with, what kind of mindset he has coming into it, I'm pretty excited. I think this is a smart signing because one, you're getting him cheap. You're not, you're not going to be good next season. So you think, hey, let's get a guy who's been in some, very good situations with very good teams and has been a good goaltender in this league for a while. Let's get him in here and see if he can impart some wisdom on these young players and say, hey, this is what it takes to prepare to play in the NHL. And this is the mindset you have to have. So I really like it. And I'm coming around to this. And I'm looking forward to seeing just what kind of knowledge he can impart on the young guys, especially young goalies. Like if Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen ever skates with him, you want that to rub off and sort of the preparation and the mental part of the game. That's huge, especially for goalies. So I like it.
And his wife is already liking the possibility of being in Buffalo because I saw her tweet today Really enjoying the fact that Wegmans is going to be in Buffalo. Is that
Yeah,
how you pronounce it? I'd never even heard of that, but I guess that's
it
a
is
big
a
store over in
yeah.
Buffalo, eh?
A Wegmans, it's a great grocery store. I go there once a week, do my weekly shopping. It's good stuff. So I'm glad that they like it.
I'm glad. And I mean, honestly, I do like this signing because ultimately he's going to be playing a lot more games than he did in Washington last season. I expect it's going to be in a backup role. I think, I think Aaron Dell's probably going to be the third goalie. I'll be shocked if they don't bring anybody else in. I mean, maybe they have to start the season with those two. Maybe there's no other
Maybe.
options, but I would be shocked because I don't know. I just don't know what the plan is there. And they just re-signed Michael Hauser as well. He's going to be playing in the AHL though. He was signed
Yeah.
with the AMERKS there. So it's a huge question mark. We'll see. I mean, I wonder if Craig Anderson really is the starter. Who knows? I guess we'll have to look more into that as training camp approaches over the next month.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. But I mean, we're talking about re-signings now, even at the AHL level. This one could have some NHL impact, though. A re-signing that we sort of missed because it happened just a day after we recorded our last episode was Rasmus Asplund. He inked a 2-year deal with an 825K AAV with the Sabres, and I mean, I'm happy about the signing. I will say that. I'll preface that with that. Do we like this contract for him? This is a player that they potentially could have lost in the expansion draft to Seattle, but I think that they're lucky that didn't happen. So he remains a Sabre for the time being. Where do we see him fitting into the lineup next season? And what's his potential, not next season, but with the Sabres overall?
I think this is a real good value signing. I'm seeing it all over Sabres Twitter. And I'm just seeing it with my own eyes because I was pretty surprised that he only signed for this much, basically signing his qualifying offer. And looking at Jay Fresh's projector projected WAR timeline versus cap hit expected WAR, he projects to really outperform his projected wins above replacement with what he's currently being paid with. And that basically just means he's expected to be a lot better than what he's currently being paid as. Because this is a player, I mean, I wonder what he is, right? I think he could be a decent third liner and a Stanley Cup contender. I think that could be his role. I don't really think he's a top six forward, obviously. I don't know if the upside's there, but he's a good two-way guy. I mean, the Sabres clearly, they were willing to, they wanted to protect this guy. So they really made it clear that they wanted to keep him around. They've signed him to a really good deal. I think you'll see more opportunities for him, and I think he takes another step next year.
Yeah, I honestly think that you could see him playing up and down in the middle six next season, just with the pieces that the Sabres have for, immediately to put into the roster. He played pretty well when he got a chance toward the end of the season under Don Granado, which is why I'm excited to sort of see what he can do. He was playing mostly with Tage, and I think he got some time with Middlestat as well. So maybe we'll see some line changing. Maybe Asplund can plug in every now and then. Really looking forward to see what he has to bring.
Definitely. And to kind of kick off some of this tape Sabres talk, we're going to end it off here. Jack Eichel randomly making a Twitter account today. I'm sure, I mean, when I saw that and I just saw randomly a verified Jack Eichel Twitter account with like 1,000 followers, I was like, oh, I wonder what prompted this. But it's here and he's following 0 people. He's waiting for his trade to come. Maybe he'll follow the team that acquires him. We'll have to see on that front. He's also been skating in Boston recently, wearing the Sabres practice jersey, practicing with a few NHL players over there. I'm just curious. We gotta continue this conversation, all of this dialogue surrounding Eichel. Let's just predict a date that he's traded, where to, and why. So predict a random date, presumably over these next 6 weeks, unless you really think it's going to be more. Maybe this really does drag on. Why is he going to this potential team that you're picking him to go to?
I actually wrote an article about this earlier this week, how the Sabres are actually running out of time, excuse me, in my opinion, to maximize their return. And I think with the more that time passes, they really are running into a dangerous situation here where they're maybe not going to end up with the best return. So I'm saying I hope it's before the next 6 weeks are up. I would hope it's as soon as possible because it took a while for both of us to come to terms with it, but it seems inevitable at this point. And I do not want this to drag into the regular season. I don't think that'll be good for whatever the Sabres are trying to build here, for the direction that they're trying to go in. So I think it has to happen in the next few weeks. And I'm going to go with the Vegas Golden Knights just because we pounded on that last week. They know how to make things happen. I'd be on board with the pieces that they have potentially that could be coming back the other way. Excuse me. So I think I'm going to go with Vegas in the next month.
In the next months. Okay, so I'll pick a date here. I'm gonna say August 27th, and you're
It's very
picking
specific.
Vegas. That's pretty good. I mean, I'm inclined to pick Vegas, but I'll be different here. Out of the remaining suitors, I still think the Minnesota Wild at some point circle back on this one because they only have a 1 year window here, really, to try to win with Kirill Kaprizov. I mean, they do have to get him signed, so maybe that's what's holding it up. I think they got to get him signed first, and hopefully this doesn't drag on to the season. They've got to get him signed, and then eventually they can make a deal work here, or maybe a Marco Rossi, maybe a Matt Boldy is the main centerpiece of the deal. Maybe a Matt Dumba can be included. I don't know how they want to make it work, but there's a lot of valuable chips there. I think there's a really good fit with Eichel in Minnesota next to Kaprizov. And I think that's a team, man, that could make it work. So, although I would be more inclined to say Vegas probably is the more likely suitor at this point, I still think Minnesota's right there and could circle back if the opportunity arises.
I agree. Well, yeah, Minnesota was real close. So I'd be good with either of those two teams, honestly, the pieces that they have. If the return was good, fingers crossed, I'd be a happy camper. Yeah. And with that, we can reset the show. You're watching Sabres Scoop presented by the Hockey Writers. Make sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube and catch the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com and on our Twitter feed. And with that, we can transition sort of from Sabres into some more general NHL stuff. Just a few points here, but there's some significant signings actually. Thomas Tatar signing a 2-year contract with the New Jersey Devils, AAV of 4.5 million. That's not, no amount of money. That's pretty good cap hit for him. So what do we think of this signing?
I mean, I'm pretty stoked for Devils fans there. I'm sure Alex Chavancy is really liking this. Tatar has a really weird reputation going on now because I mean, in Vegas in their in their Stanley Cup Finals run back in 2018, he was scratched for a majority of it. He ended up getting traded in that Max Pacioretty deal to Montreal. Has been electric there on a line with Philip Deneau and Brendan Gallagher. He's just been so great at 5v5, drives to play really well. I mean, I literally I believe I saw he was 18th in terms of his 5v5 points per 60. Like, this is a real player here that can be a first line winger. And I mean, New Jersey got him at a relatively decent cap hit there, and it's only for 2 years. I mean, they didn't even have to give him that much term. And generally, when players make it this far into free agency or starting to get days out, you're signing those shorter term deals. Tatar was a real good value addition in my eyes. I don't necessarily know where he's going to play. I think maybe next to a Nico Hischier is probably where he's most likely going to end up. That could be a real good shutdown line there. And but back to my point earlier, like he didn't even play with the Montreal Canadiens for a majority of of
Oh,
their Stanley Cup
we
Finals run.
didn't.
He was scratched basically completely right after that Leafs series. So I mean, they didn't value him that much, even though he was pretty pivotal and even them just barely making the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? Like, is this a guy that can really be on that playoff team if two teams now that made it to the Stanley Cup Finals decided that he was better off not being on their one of their four lines?
You got to wonder about that because that's a little bit of a head scratcher. It's a little confusing as to why a player who's been pretty productive would be scratched in, high pressure situations. I don't know if there's more there. I doubt it. I think it's maybe just not the chemistry's there. I don't know what they're thinking, but I think he can be a good contributor on a playoff team. And I would say, to go into our next question, is New Jersey a sleeper to make the playoffs next season in this Metro division? I think they are. I think with the pieces that they've added, I think Tatar gives them a little bit of an offensive, power that they hadn't had in the past few seasons. And like you said, he can slip in next to a center like Nico Hischier and really change the line that he's on. So I think that with Tatar there, he could potentially add a lot of offensive value. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if you think they're true contenders because this Metro division is going to be pretty tough. You look at the teams there, some teams are on the up and up, some teams are going to stay there. It's going to be tough, but I could see them contending.
Well, I'm gonna call them a sleeper, a dark horse at this moment. Remember in 2019, after they were deemed as off-season winners, and then they ended up pretty much flopping at that point.
Yeah.
And then that's how they ended up with Jack Hughes. So I guess it worked out well for them. And now, and now a couple of years later, they end up with Luke at fourth overall. But I doubt they have a top 5 pick come next year. And honestly, I think they're going to be pretty close because this Metro division, honestly, is kind of wide open. Looking at some of the situations right now, I think it is possible that a team like the Devils could squeak in there because I think a lot of people, like, we always try to be so linear in our playoff predictions, but there's always a surprise team. Somebody
Yeah.
always gets in that nobody really expects. I think the Devils could be that because they just added Dougie Hamilton. They just added the best free agent, a top 10 defender in the whole league. They just added him in. And who knows? I don't know if they ever plan on moving PK Subban out. I mean, they actually just reached the cap floor with their moves today, because they also signed
Really?
Igor Sharangovich for 2 years. I really like him as a player and as a rookie. I think he still has some potential there. I don't know if the upside's necessarily that high with him, but he can be a good contributor for them. Jack Hughes is set to have a real breakout season this year.
I agree.
He
He
has
was
all the tools.
close. He was close last season, and then he sort of bogged
Yeah,
down by injury. But
he showed
I
it in
like him.
stints.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the first 20 games, I thought he really was on pace to have like a really good breakout season. He just couldn't do anything the last 20 games.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
mainly because a guy like Andreas Janssen, his line mate, who he played a lot with at 5v5, had a terrible season. But he's
Yeah.
due for a bounce back. I mean, his shooting percentage is going to go up. He's a good play driver. I think at some point, I think Hughes could play it at like a 70-point pace this upcoming season
Yeah.
if he was
That'd be
really set
great.
up to succeed. Nico Heischer, that's a guy that just want to stay healthy. If both those guys are healthy and playing at their potential, they're already a much better team. And now you've added in a guy like Tomas Tatar. You've added in Dougie Hamilton. Don't forget Ryan Graves. They didn't have to trade that much. They traded Mikhail Maltsev, who played some games for them last year. I think they've been able to replace him internally, and with some of their free agent signings. This is going to be a good. I'm excited. I mean, Mackenzie Blackwood is a goalie you shouldn't be underrating. So
Oh
he
yeah,
can definitely get them to the playoffs.
I agree.
Definitely. And now we have an interesting thing to talk about now. This came out on a Russian excerpt in an interview with Nikita Zadorov that Nathan MacKinnon, man, this guy's kind of crazy. He's kind of off his mind when it comes to this, all of his dietitian stuff, how he talks to his teammates in practice in regards to this stuff. I'm just going to read a little bit of the interview that came out here. And this is coming from Nikita Zadorov. This was translated into English as well. So this is what he had to say. I saw the progression in Nat's game. He's such a pro. He has a dietologist that he pays $50,000 a year. He has a life in he has a doctor in his house during the season. He pays him $1,000 each day. He rents him an apartment. He has his own chef who he pays another 100 grand a year to. He simply invests in himself and his own body so he can play at the highest level. He's crazy that way. He eats right. He doesn't drink. He drinks only water. 2 years ago in Colorado, he got rid of all the pop ice cream desserts. He got rid of them from the dressing room and pregame meals. He got rid of the white sauce carbona for pasta. He replaced the actual pasta itself with the chickpea pasta that has more protein and so on. We'll just stop it right there because it continues to get crazy if you want to read it on Twitter. I mean, it's all over the place. I'm sure you've seen all the memes of it.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of this? Like, let's just kind of dive into the first question I have here. What do we think of, like, I mean, he clearly invests this much money into himself, right? I don't know how many players are actually doing this. I mean, I have to imagine Sidney Crosby's inspired him in this regard. I don't
Yeah.
know. I know he's not that open about it, but I have to imagine Crosby does some similar things here because MacKinnon
Yeah.
and Crosby are so tight. They're best friends. You see them together every offseason. What do you make of this? Him spending literally hundreds of thousands basically every year.
Yeah. It's funny. One of the yeah, he's the player on the best bargain contract in the league, and he uses all that money to spend
Yeah.
on dietitians and the doctors and whatnot. I mean, that's true commitment to greatness, and that we see it on the ice. It translates. He like drastically improved. Not that he was a bad player, but he was a really good player, and he just sort of took it to another level. And now he's like top 3 in the league, and if not the best player on a lot of nights. And that's why, I mean, he takes it really seriously. It's always those guys who are willing to do whatever it takes that they're going to see the results. And so it's really cool. I mean, a lot of people were questioning the, sort of laying into his teammates during practice and stuff, but if they like him and they see him as a good leader, then I'm not going to question it. And I think it's really funny. I have enjoyed the memes that have gotten out there, but I mean, it's pretty cool at the same time to see somebody like that.
Well, I'll actually mention this because you brought up the teammates.
Yeah.
This is what Zadorov also had to say. If you miss a pass in practice, he would skate over and literally scream at you. You can't pass him the puck without hitting his stick. We had young players come over during the playoffs. If the puck ends up in his skates, not even his skates, if it misses his stick by a tiny bit, like 15 centimeters in front of the blade of his stick, he doesn't move his stick to catch the puck. He stops everything, turns around, and slaps the puck back at you. he's not going to try to receive any puck he doesn't like during practice, just to show you that he made a bad pass. I mean, he didn't exactly say that. There's a swear word there,
Yeah.
but I'll say this, is it too much? Do you think the way he's acting in some of these practices now that this is coming out from Zadorov? I mean, I don't think Zadorov meant for it to go like this crazy. I mean, these Russian interviews always pop up during the off season because people are actively looking for stuff like this translating. So I might be taking a little bit out of context here. I don't think Zadorov is suggesting that MacKinnon's a crazy man, but the team's winning, but can't take that next step, in Colorado. I kind of can see maybe why MacKinnon isn't the captain there and why Landeskog is and why they maybe push so hard to keep him. Because I'm starting to wonder if he was the captain, would he maybe? I think he might be a little bit too hot-headed, in my opinion. I'm curious to get your take there, Brandon.
Yeah, it's honestly, maybe I don't watch enough Avalanche hockey, but I've never really noticed or thought of Nate MacKinnon as a hothead or some kind of like really emotional guy. I always thought he was kind of a more quiet player. I know he gets into scruffles sometimes, like that one with Connor Garland comes to
Yeah, no,
mind
I was
where he
gonna
throws the
mention that.
helmet. Yeah, so I that actually just popped into my head now that I'm saying this. But other than that, I hadn't really thought of him as an emotional guy. Sort of like, even less emotional than Sidney Crosby, who's clean. He's a clean player, but he's super emotional. Maybe sort of like playing off of that. I don't know, but I don't know if it's too much. I mean, the health stuff, he can do whatever he wants. I mean, that it seems like it's paying off. The practice stuff, I've definitely, we've seen players like that. But again, if his players like him and they have a quiet sort of captain presence like Landeskog in the room, then I think balances itself out.
Definitely, and I mean, if they win a cup, I mean, who cares, right? If this is the way, I mean, as long as people enjoy it, though, because I would like to, think that the players would like being there, and I have to believe they do. Like Colorado was the best team in the regular season. By all accounts, McKinnon's a pretty good guy. I just love that the memes, the memes coming
Yeah,
from
it's
this,
been
and I think
good.
it's been pretty good. I think there's a reason why this is popping up in the off season. Like I don't know if this would be as big during the regular season, but because there's not as much to talk about now, a week after free agency, everybody loves to make all the memes on this stuff like this.
I totally agree. Yeah. And sort of to wrap things up here, here's an off-season question. It's a big one. It's surrounding a lot of conversations because we're all talking about the salary cap and how it's not going up as high as it's supposed to. But hey, here we go. In 2022 to 23, the salary cap is going to increase by $1 million. You think that's not that much, but that can make a world of difference to some teams who are tied against the cap. 82.5 million. Let's play a little game. Let's pick the best player that is currently signed to $1 million or less, not on an entry level deal, to add to a potential team that's right at the cap right now. Some options that we have: Darren Helm, I'm surprised he's still playing, Tony DeAngelo, Corey Perry, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Rasmus Asplund, and Mark Pesic, who are two Buffalo Sabres right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I know. We did kind of forget to talk about Pissick as a guy, who's just trying to kind of make it back into the NHL.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the last time he was here, he was pretty established. But now, I mean, out of this list, I don't think I'm picking Pissick. Asplund is definitely a guy I would consider. I mean, Tony DeAngelo, I just kind of added onto that list just because it's like, well, whatever. I don't think I'm picking him. I mean, DeAngelo is clearly the best player out of all of these guys. I mean, I don't think that's the question here, but like,
Yeah.
that just shows you why I wouldn't even want to pick him. Corey Perry, though, man, the fact that that guy signed for 1 million, 2 years with Tampa is just absurd, in my opinion. He couldn't beat Tampa the last two Stanley Cup Finals as a member of the Dallas Stars and Montreal Canadiens. Now he's just going to play for them. And I would be pretty
Yeah.
shocked if Tampa wins 3 in a row too. 3 and 4 seems kind of in reach for them, but I would have to say Corey Perry. There's a decent. I mean, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is an interesting name right there. I'm curious to see how he performs because he's actually a guy I like at $1 million. Asplund I like as well too. So I mean, if you're going for upside, I would pick Asplund, but at this moment, I kind of like considering it's just 1 million and the role he would be playing. I think Corey Perry fits the best on the team.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to talk too long here saying the exact same things you did, but I would probably go for the immediate time. I would say Corey Perry too, just because I think he's a real good replacement for some of the players, some of the talent that Tampa lost just because they couldn't resign some of these players because they had so many good ones they had to resign. But Corey Perry, especially at that price, and look at how he played with Montreal last year, especially in the playoffs. I like that a lot for Tampa. So Perry's going to be my option.
Yeah, this was a fun little exercise we did, but this kind of just shows you what $1 million kind of can do to a team. You can either add, and this is all about cap management, right? And how you're valuing your assets. Look at what the Vancouver Canucks are doing right now. They signed Tucker Pullman to a 4-year, $2.5 million contract. Duncan Keith didn't get his salary retained at all, is making a full 5.5 in Edmonton. Right now, especially during free agency, defensemen, third pairing defensemen get really overvalued. And if you can find decent options there, or decent bottom six forwards, you don't have to give a Jay Beagle $3 million. You can give a Pierre Edward Belmar $1 million, and they'll basically do the same job, maybe even better. These are the guys you should be acquiring there, or you can maybe give somebody a raise that actually deserves it, for $1 million. So it's going to be awesome to see what NHL general managers do over the next 3 years, because the cap barely is going up. I'm assuming it goes up 1 million after this year, and then maybe it gets to 83.5 at some point, and then maybe we get a decent jump after that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. And like you said, some of these players who are on not very expensive contracts, sometimes they can punch above their weight and really add a lot. Like, not just points wise, but good presence in the locker room and do other things on the ice, play on your special teams. That's what I'm hoping Asplund can do for the Sabres. And hopefully Pesek can make some sort of impact on that back end as well. He'll be in and out of the lineup, I'm assuming, but it's good to see otherwise. And with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. We thank you for joining us. This has been Sabres Scoop presented by the Hockey Writers. Make sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at SabresScoopTHW. And once again, make sure you head over to morningskate.io to sign up for our daily Morning Skate newsletter so you don't miss the latest and weirdest hockey news every day. Don't miss out on all of the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com. For Jordan, this is Brandon, and this has been Sabres Scoop. Until next time.